2015, we made a pivot to become a climate advisory firm. And with the type of work that we were doing, stuff like helping with TCFD report writing, climate strategies and that sort of thing, it was very, difficult to scale. So what we decided to do is to leverage technology. So we made another pivot back in 2020, and we became a SaaS plus company. So we brought in a number of people that had various levels of education, people like myself in software, people like Shank here that are climate strategists. And really what we're doing now is we wanted to, keep supporting our customers, but leverage technology to do that. So what essentially we're doing today, we've got a climate intelligence platform that gives businesses tools and support needed to build that climate competence and expertise. Being able to level up, make sure that you're in alignment with the TCFD framework, among other things like keeping up to speed with what your peers are doing in the real estate space as it relates to climate, what's going on in the world with climate news and how it might affect the real estate industry, as well as education. So educating people internally on climate, why it's important to the real estate industry, why you should care and action certain things. So a little background for you on who we are and what we do. And moving right along here, the software, is really built around the TCFD framework, especially with some of the new SEC guidelines that you're probably all aware that are coming in the next year or two. Some really exciting stuff happening. So I'll pass it over to Shank to talk about that for a minute.
Great, thanks, Jeff. I'm going to touch upon a little bit about how the TCFD has informed how we've built the software. So as governments and businesses rush to manage climate-related issues, there is a need for some standardization around how climate risks and opportunities can be considered. The Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, or the TCFD, is quickly gaining popularity as the globally accepted framework for climate risk management and disclosure. We are now seeing a growing number of investors and industries, including commercial real estate, aligning their climate disclosure requirements with the recommendations of the TCFD. Even more recently, as Jeff mentioned, we've seen that regulations like the SEC's proposal to enhance and standardize climate-related disclosures are aligning with the TCFD recommendations. While the TCFD does put a lot of emphasis on disclosing climate-related information with improved transparency, having the relevant processes and strategies in place will certainly improve the ability of businesses to manage climate-related issues. We have hence built the Manifest platform around the TCFD framework and how it recommends addressing climate risks and opportunities. I'm now going to hand it back to Jeff to talk a little about the challenges we are helping our clients solve.
Thanks, Shank. So yeah, in terms of the software, we always like to talk about the challenges, the problems that we're helping our real estate customers with. So the first thing here, every challenge has a module that goes along with it. The first challenge problem we're helping solve is the alignment with the TCFD framework, right? Making sure that you're up to speed, you're aligned well. And that doesn't matter if you're just starting as a business, following the TCFD framework and you want to align to it, or whether you're, a couple of years, into the journey, you've written a TCFD report or two. We have a solution to help with that. Shank, over to you.
Great, thanks, Jeff. So we do this by understanding how far along your company is on your climate journey. So we leverage our technology to scrub publicly available information and disclosures and identify how your company is aligned with the TCFD framework. We also supplement this by having our clients provide information through a questionnaire with questions that are targeted at teasing out nuances related to their climate-related processes that might not be evident in their public reports. At the end of this exercise, we are able to provide a report that highlights how your company fares against an industry leader benchmark. This benchmark can be as specific as comparing your climate and TCFD alignment with other commercial real estate peers. The report also identifies gaps and opportunities to improve alignment with the TCFD framework and a list of recommendations to progress on your climate journey and develop better climate management and disclosure processes. Back to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Shank. The next challenge, what's going on in the world of climate, the news, how it relates to real estate, as well as what your peers are doing, what your competitors might be doing in terms of climate. Maybe you want to replicate what they're doing, benchmark what they're doing, or just track what your competitors and peers are doing. It's tough to keep track of it all and stay on top of it. So we have a solution for that. Over to you, Shane.
Thanks. So we do this in a couple of ways. Firstly, our team regularly produces and publishes climate-related trend articles that cover areas like policy and regulation, energy transition, and upcoming technologies. Now, this involves combing through scores of articles, which our team does on a regular basis, which are related to how climate change is impacting the real estate sector, and identifying themes that would help companies be better prepared to manage the associated risks and opportunities. So, for example, a recently approved change to the state of Washington's building code will require commercial properties to step away from using natural gas for space and water heating. A trend article that our team published recently on this topic draws comparisons to similar regulations in the UK and New Zealand and identifies how real estate companies are developing transition plans to deal with them. We also have a peer tracker, which is essentially a summary table that helps you track how your peers in the commercial real estate space are performing on a number of key indicators, such as their progress against meeting their climate targets, their emissions reduction plans, and the climate initiatives and frameworks they have committed to. So our team is constantly updating this tracker, so it gives our clients a real-time view of how their peers are performing.
Thanks. And then last but not least, at the bottom left here, keeping up to speed with climate competencies, right? Making sure that your team is educated internally. This could be tough to do right now if you have a small team. And it can be for board members, they can be for C-suite, upper level management, even the entire organization. We have customers that are opening up these courses to their entire business. So we've all taken some sort of LMS, learning management software, to take internal courses, and we've done just the same. So we've developed some pretty good, pretty neat internal courses here, all related to climate, things like TCFD 101, climate basics, climate governance, and so forth. Over to you, Shank.
Great. So to improve climate competency within your organization, we provide online courses that are focused on climate-related education, including some of the topics that Jeff mentioned. Now, this includes these some foundational courses like climate change basics and introduction to the TCFD, but we are also able to provide more bespoke training and education, for example, on assessing and managing climate risks for commercial real estate companies, or even around building better climate governance practices within your organization. I'm gonna pass it back to Jeff.
Thanks, Shank. Okay, let's get into some stuff here. Let me minimize my screen and launch the software platform. So this is the main screen for the software. As mentioned earlier, each module has its own separate tab here at the top. And starting with the climate profile here, this is the TCFD benchmarking component. And even before I dive into it, the first thing that we do, for public companies, is we take your reports, right? So we'll take your voluntary reports, your CSRs, regulatory reports, your 10Ks, and we put them into the software, and we've developed this proprietary database that scrubs your reports in alignment with the TCFD framework. So we give you a score based on quality and coverage. That's the first thing. The second thing we do is we supplement that with a questionnaire. So if I click on climate profile here, we have a questionnaire that is all based around the 4 pillars of the TCFD framework. So governance, risk management, strategy, metrics, and targets. And you're not alone when it comes to submitting these questions, right? We have a collaborator mode. A lot of companies, of course, are going to have a risk management team, and maybe you pass that section on to them to submit the questions. They're very simple questions. They're not littered with climate jargon that and acronyms that people might not understand. We make it very simple. So, for example, I'll click on strategy here, and once this loads up, you'll see that there's multiple choice questions. How long is your organization's short-term horizon? You just select the answer that's applicable. There's text fields in here so that you can add additional context. Very simple stuff. When it comes to governance, questions like how often is your board meeting and talking about climate related issues. You go through this questionnaire, and it's really not a huge lift. takes maybe a couple hours to submit, maybe a little bit longer based on the complexity of your climate program. We also have here at the bottom some resources to help you respond to these questions. So if I open that up, we've actually broken down every single question within the assessment, and we give guidance. We provide guidance on exactly what the TCFD is looking for and how to respond to these questions efficiently and effectively. Okay, so just trying to make things as dead simple for you as possible, outlining exactly how to respond to these questions. Okay. So what happens next? Okay, we're going to take those responses once again, put them into the software engine, but there's also that human element, human side that goes with it as well. So our team of climate strategists are going to review the responses, and then we're going to give you another score based on quality and coverage. And let me open up what that looks like. I'll jump to my real estate demo environment here. Click on climate profile. And as I scroll down, you're going to see that this page has been updated. So right here, you have your top 3 takeaways. You know, this is what we've identified as our top takeaways after reviewing your public disclosures, as well as the questionnaire. So we outline that for you, some key items. And then as I scroll down, we have a TCFD index and alignment listed here, mapped out with all the pillars and each section within the pillar. So here's board oversight for governance A. And then over here on the right-hand side, this is pretty neat. We have 3 columns and a dot ranking system to show you how well you're aligned with the TCFD framework. So this column here on the left side is based on your reports on the disclosures. That could be your 2020 reports. The middle column here is based on the questionnaire. And you can see last on the right-hand side, we compare you against industry leaders, so best in class. So maybe you want to be compared to other companies that you follow, your peers, maybe companies that have a similar employee size or a similar market cap. We can compare you against those other businesses, because we have so many companies in our database that we're reviewing their TCFD structure and their public reports, where we can stack you up against them. And one really neat thing to mention is with every single one of our customers to date, what they're saying they're doing in their public reports versus what they're actually doing based on the questionnaire is very different. So what we do is we help daylight those gaps, provide recommendations, quick wins, and deeper dives. And I'll show you right now what that looks like. So you're essentially going to get a report, an executive summary, which is a scaled down report, and then a longer, more detailed report. And I'll show you what that looks like. So something like this, where we highlight the key recommendations. After we review your disclosures and the questionnaire, we line up the key recommendations directly with the 4 pillars of the framework. So some really good information in here. And then every pillar within the framework has its own page, its own section related to it. So the first thing you see here for strategy, for example, is a really neat visual where we have clarity on the bottom axis and quality here on the side, basically showing the breadth of the coverage, how well you're covered, versus the quality of your coverage here. So really neat. Right here, the light purple dot is based on your disclosures. The dark purple dot is based on the questionnaire. So you can actually see a pretty substantial gap between the two. And then the yellow dot here is based on industry leaders, best in class. So you can see the gap between your business and where the leaders are. So as I scroll down here a little bit more, there's the TCFD index and alignment that I just showed you on the previous screen. And then here's the most important part here is your opportunity for improvement. Okay, so these are some quick wins that we've identified, some actions that you can take to tell a better climate story, identify those risks and turn them into opportunities. And then we have some deeper dives, maybe some areas that your team needs to spend a little bit more time on, allocate some more resources to. So some great information here. One thing I'll touch on really quickly, the time it takes for us to do this. So, if you're to do this internally or manually, or even use a third-party consultant to do this, you got to read through all the documentation word by word. And, we hear from our customers that could take anywhere from 6 months to a year to complete that exercise. But because we're leveraging the technology and the AI to do this, we could turn this report around in as little as 4 to 6 weeks. So very quickly, we can get this to you. And of course, you could spend more time on other climate initiatives that you're working on. Okay, so that's the maturity profile, the TCFD portion. Over to market intelligence here, keeping up to speed with what your peers are doing. So right here, we have this view called Sector Watch, and we've selected 5 companies in the real estate industry, and we're pulling from public reports what their what climate initiatives and frameworks they're following. So this one shows their emission reduction targets, short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. What year they have that goal and what percentage they are to that goal. Their absolute GHG emissions, scope 1, 2, and 3. And you have the ability to pick and choose which companies you want to track. So, some of our customers in real estate, have told us, hey, I'm going into board meetings. Our CFO is asking me, what are these 3 competitors doing with climate? It's taking me a week to pull this information, but within one quick, easy view here, you can pull up all that information at your fingertips so you can follow along exactly what your peers are doing. Okay. Moving right along here, as I scroll down, the next component of market intelligence is called trend articles. So every day, people like Shank here and our other strategists are writing articles based on what's going on in the world of climate. And then we're following these 7 trend categories here at the top, everything from climate finance to governance, policy, and legal action. You can click on each title to filter through the different the articles that we've written. And what we're not trying to do here is we're not trying to be a news aggregator, right? We're not trying to be a Bloomberg. There's lots of other sources out there. I'm sure you're getting peppered with your with emails every day on what's going on in the world of climate, and that's not what we're trying to do. The difference here is at the end of every month, we're creating a curated report that looks something like this. So here's April, and what we're doing is we're basically summarizing all the key trends that we found throughout the month, but we're putting our spin on it and how it relates to the real estate industry. So for example, climate finance here has its own page. If I click on read the article in full, I'll open that up. This one is specific to the IPCC report. Here's the article we've written. And then the key component here at the bottom is our key takeaways. So how this specifically relates to the real estate industry, why it should matter to you, and maybe give you some thoughts on how to action some of these things. So some really great information here. It's tough to keep up to speed with what's going on, and with climate, it changes by the day. So this is a great tool to help you with that, and more importantly, how it relates to your industry. Okay, and then last but not least, education. Right, so keeping your employees up to speed with internal education with climate. We've developed some really good climate content in here. Climate governance, TCFD 101, climate basics are some of the courses that we've created. So much like any other LMS system, learning management system you may have used, we have a series of modules that you can go through here. There's audio to follow through, video. There's little micro quizzes throughout the courses. And you follow along, and it's just a great way to keep people educated on climate. And maybe you want to do a little bit more than just take courses through a software. We also offer workshops. We can do in-person workshops with board members. We do that stuff all the time. So not limited to just taking courses online, but it's just an easy way for people to take this content on their own time. Okay. And that pretty much sums up the presentation for the software here today. Looks like we're good for time and have a few minutes for Q&A. So let me just pull up my my PowerPoint here again. And yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to ask away.
Thanks, Jeff. I do have some questions accumulating here. First off, for the companies that you're working with today, where are they typically in their climate journey? Are they in the early stages of their TCFD journey, or are they advanced, reporting?
I can take this one. So we work with clients in varying degrees of climate maturity, and the asks that we've seen from these different clients are kind of similar, but different in certain ways. So the early stage companies, they really need help in identifying how they can get started on their TCFD and climate disclosure journeys. And so for them, we identify quick wins that they can target, maybe related to information that they're already tracking or strategies that they already have in place, and how they can establish climate disclosure and risk management processes going forward and better improve their disclosure for the forthcoming years. And as for clients who are further along on their climate journey, they can really benefit from understanding how their peers are managing and disclosing climate-related information, what industry leaders are doing, and what best practice looks like.
Awesome. And how does aligning with the TCFD help meet specific requirements laid out in regulations and laws, like the SEC proposal?
Right. So the SEC is something that we've heard of, it's been quite evident in the recent past. And what we're seeing increasingly is that similar regulatory bodies and standard setting associations as well are looking at the TCFD really as a framework of sort that provides guidance around climate disclosure and management. While the TCFD doesn't necessarily outline how action needs to be taken, requirements that are laid out in these regulations like the SEC proposal are more prescriptive, and they have very specific asks. So for us, aligning with the TCFD and the principles around good climate disclosure and management, these are really enshrined in the recommendations of the TCFD, and this can help businesses be better prepared for regulations and standards that are to come in the future.
Got it. Another question just came in. How do you account for energy consumption of buildings that your clients occupy?
Great. I can take this one as well. So this is some of the information that we look for from our clients. So as we go through the exercise of filling out the questionnaire, pulling the information from public documents that Jeff mentioned and demonstrated, this is the sort of information that we would look for from clients. And as we go through the exercise of comparing against peers, we daylight those best practices, and this can really help companies and help our clients understand, put an action plan together themselves on what they need to be doing to achieve their maybe energy consumption reduction or emissions reduction goals.
Awesome. And where does Manifest Climate fit with its customers that are currently engaged in services with other ESG and sustainability consultants?
Yeah, I could take that one, Shank. So yeah, many of our clients today are already engaged with other climate sustainability consultants, and the two really complement each other, right? We're not trying to take away work from the consultants. Really, where we come into play is because we're using the technology and the AI, we're able to identify the gaps a lot quicker. The recommendations can be pulled in a matter of 4 to 6 weeks, like I mentioned, as well as benchmarking against peers. So at a much faster clip. And then what we typically see with our real estate customers, where their consultants come into play, is actioning the recommendations and the findings that we've identified. So yeah, lots of customers we're working with today. We're working very closely with the consultants they're already engaged in, and working friendly with them. So great question.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Jeff. And finally, we have one last question that came in from one of our attendees. Are there any plans to include additional climate ESG related disclosure frameworks such as PRI?
Great. I can take this one as well. Yeah, this is definitely something that we're evolving within our software as we speak, because what we've seen is, like the PRI, which is increasingly aligned with the TCFD recommendations. Recently we had the ISSB come out with some regulations, or sort of some standardization around aligning with the TCFD as well. And as we build out this tool even more, we're trying to align with what specific asks of the PRI or the ISSB are related to the TCFD recommendations, and how going through this exercise will help our clients answer those relevant questions that fit in under frameworks like the PRI.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I think that rounds out the questions we have just in time. If there's anything else you guys wanted to share. You'll have an opportunity to connect with our attendees directly, and be sure everyone to reach out to Shank and Jeff with any other questions, and hopefully be able to find a way to work with Manifest Climate. So thank you guys for that presentation.
Thanks a lot,
Oleg.
Oleg, for helping set this up, and everybody joining. Thanks for virtually meeting you. Nice to meet you, and we'll be in touch.
Great. Thank you.